From time to time, I tend to reflect on my beliefs, behavioral patterns, tendencies, and change them accordingly if they become obsolete. It's never really a good idea to let your opinions define who you are as a person. It simply stunts growth. So this time, I'm gonna be testing one of my strongest beliefs, which is vintage lenses can be optically just as good as modern lenses while being significantly cheaper. And for this purpose, I got 3 old vintage lenses, and I'm gonna be comparing them to Sony FE 28 to 70mm f3.5 to 5.6 kit zoom lens. 2 out of 3 of these lenses had a few problems. Sigma had a problematic mount and Tokina was simply a mess. Bada bing bada boom, and I fixed both of them. So the vintage zooms I got are Tokina 28 to 85 f4, Makinon 28 to 80 f3.5, and last but not least Sigma XQ 39 to 80 f3.5. After early testing, I've decided that I will not include Sigma XQ into this test because it is significantly softer than these other 2 lenses and I deem her unworthy. But it is an engineering marvel. It has 4 control rings for focusing, zooming, macro focusing, and aperture control. It is super fun, unique looking. It has some odd coating which gives some nice and sexy reflections, and I might make a video dedicated to this lens in the future. For testing these lenses, I'll be using photos because of their higher resolution samples, and I'll be looking at sharpness, vignetting, distortion, color, contrast, micro contrast are of lesser importance to me because you can more or less easily fix them in post. Optical correction was turned off for the native Sony lens. We want to see everything raw without that in-camera post-processing fluff. For testing out the sharpness, I found a nice flat wall with a bunch of graffiti on it and nice textures. A flat focus plane should yield the most objective results possible when it comes to sharpness. At 28mm wide open, Makinon is a bit soft even in the center. The other 2 are on par, with Tokina having a bit softer corners. As we stop down to 5.6, they are all sharp in the center. Makinon and Sony are virtually identical at this point, even in the corners. Here, Tokina tends to show higher resolving power, and this trend continues to f8 and f11. At 35mm wide open, Sony beats both of these lenses. At 5.6, they all even out. Tokina again shows higher resolution, especially towards the edges of the frame. As we close down to f8 and f11, they all even out again. At 50mm wide open, Sony is consistently good. Makinon is mushy and soft, so much so that I'm doubting my focus on this one, and Tokina is just a bit behind Sony, probably due to the f4, f4.5 aperture discrepancy between the 2. Further stopping down the aperture, and just as expected, Tokina takes the cake here, especially in the corner department. Shows the same story. Tokina slightly edging out to Sony with the Makinon trailing behind. At 70mm, when we even out-haul 3 at f5.6, Tokina again destroys the Sony boy. At f8 and above, Tokina remains the king. This first comparison was strictly analyzing the sharpness and resolution of these lenses. It is obvious that Sony has punchier contrast in most situations and handles flares better. Distortion-wise, Makinon is absolutely the worst. At 28mm, its battle distortion is pronounced, to say the least, but after that it goes straight into pincushion distortion. Extremely obvious, and to add insult to injury, vignetting is present all throughout the range. Very nasty when used on a full frame camera, that is. Sony is absolutely the winner here, with Tokina following closely behind. Neither of these lenses is a true macro lens, but they have some decent reproduction ratios. Oddly enough, this is where Makinon flat out wins. At 28mm, it gives us 1:4 reproduction ratio, it is surprisingly sharp and introduces nice and smooth bokeh. Sony lags behind a bit both in bokeh, magnification, sharpness. It is limited to 70mm f5.6, so yeah, nothing special here. Tokina is in no way a contender here. It is stuck to 0.65 meters at 85mm, and it's a bit bloomy and soft even at f5.6. Now, before I even started testing these lenses, I was prepared for the utter destruction of my ego and my beliefs. However, the results were far more nuanced. For example, Makinon is kinda soft, it vignettes a lot, and it has problems with distortion. On the other hand, Tokina is sharp and completely on par with the Sony, and in some cases it out-resolves the shit out of it, which was a massive surprise for me. I knew 40 to 50-year-old primes can easily stand toe-to-toe with modern glass, but for a vintage zoom to be on par with the contemporary kit zoom lens such as this, that's absolutely glorious if you ask me. This further cements my belief that money is not a deciding factor or a limiting factor when it comes to photography or cinematography. You can get awesome lenses for 10 or 20 bucks, and if you take your time to clean, lubricate and adjust the lens, you might be surprised with the results. I mean, look at this lens, look at Tokina. It was absolutely trashed when I bought it for 8 bucks, and now it's on par with a modern kit lens that costs $400 new. All the photo samples have been uploaded to my Google Drive folder, so I encourage you to download them, pixel peep and draw your own conclusions. I might be wrong after all. I do have to say that autofocus is intoxicating. Sony paired with a proper native lens eclipses the competition. It's so fun to see AF on a full frame be so quick and precise. Look at this, now look at this, now watch this. Oh my god, what the hell is that right over there? But can you do this? Please pardon my temporary loss of sanity. I've been manual focusing for the last 10 years, so this was rather refreshing.